Hey crew, it's Bit, and I'm back with another Bible study. We're going to be diving back into Exodus today, so if you are unfamiliar with what we have been doing so far in the Bible, you should probably check out where we went first. Start with Genesis if you would like, and I would definitely suggest that. Or at the beginning of the Exodus playlist at a minimum, so that you understand how I go about reading the Bible and talking about what I speculate out of it and the things that I see. Uh, because I would really hate for you to get your feelings hurt. And with that being said, we're going to dive into Exodus 5 because we left off at Exodus 4. Exodus 5, well, when we left off in Exodus 4, Moses performed the signs for the people, and they heard that the Lord had attended to the Israelites. They were happy to hear that they were about to be freed from slavery. And so we're going to get into Exodus 5, Pharaoh's first refusal. After that, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go, so that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." First off, right here, problem. And what's that? What could it possibly be? The first line in this chapter, right? This is deceptive. This is not what he is trying to do. He is trying to free the people. But that's not what he says. He says, let them go out and hold a feast in the wilderness. He is being deceptive in the name of God. Because if this was God, God would go to Pharaoh through Moses and be, set my people free. Or else I will bring these plagues upon your house. And list them out. And say, at any point you can stop this. And from this point forward, none of this will happen if you do what God demands of you. And that would be in the character of God. This, however, is not in the character of just true, right? This is not, because this is lie, deceive. And so it is a contradiction with the overall story that is told. It's not for me because I did view it as an amalgamation of stories, and that the message is the grand scope of things and not necessarily the details in the words. That's why we go through the details, because there are people who believe that it's inerrant, that it is infallible, and that's just simply not true. We have already shown that. We will continue to show that. Okay, so they're basing this upon a lie. That's already, you shall not bear false witness, right? You're already breaking a commandment. They haven't been given the commandments yet, but still, in the character of God, you're breaking a commandment going to Pharaoh with this. That is bearing false witness. And you're bringing a witness with you to bear false witness. But Pharaoh replied, "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Now this is interesting because if we look back at Joseph and the story of Joseph and how the Hebrews came to be slaves in Egypt, then he had to have known, right? There's no way that it's unknown, like completely unknown. And so it's a little bit weird that he says this, but what he's saying is that I don't recognize your God as having authority over me. And that's a perfectly valid response to this person who is just coming back out of the wilderness where he fled after murdering his someone. "And the God of the Hebrews has met with us," they answered. "Please let us go on a 3-day journey into the wilderness to sacrifice to the Lord our God, or he may strike us with plagues or with the sword." Now, they're slaves, right? That's where we're at. They're slaves. They're not given the freedom of a religion, right? To a certain extent, they might be, but for the overall part, you're going to be taking part in the dominant culture's religion. Like, they're just not going to allow you to have your own subset in the prime land of slaves who do all of this stuff. But to go into the wilderness to sacrifice to our Lord our God, or he may strike us with plagues or swords. Like, that's kind of the ultimatum, but again, we're with the 3-day journey. We're going to go this far out and we'll be back. Like, we're just going to come right back. Like, we're not going away. We're just going over here for a little bit and we're going to come back. That's what they're telling him. That's what they're promising in the name of the Lord, right? If you let us go and worship our God, we will come back. And yet. And so, instead of, like, no, you let us go, or else God will do these things. Like, you're telling him there will be plagues or a sword. Tell them flat out, if you do not let my people go, then this will happen. First, there will be this plague, and this plague, and this plague, and this plague, and this plague. Until finally, I'm just going to kill all your kids. Right? But let them know, because then they can make a choice. But they don't want the choice, they want the death. Whoops, I said something. But the king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you draw the people away from their work? Get back to your labor, you rabble-rousers. Pharaoh also said, look, the people of the land are now numerous, and you would be stopping them from their labor. We have an economy entirely based upon these people making bricks. And that same day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their foremen, you shall no longer supply the people the straw for making bricks. They must go and gather their own straw. But require of them the same quota of bricks as before, and do not reduce it, for they are lazy. That's why they're crying out, let us go sacrifice to our God. Make the work harder on the men, so they will be occupied, and pay no attention to these lies. Again, this is the same position of authority, if not the same person. It's not the same person, right? But the position of Pharaoh is the same one who said, kill all the men, kill all the boys when they're born, and then we don't have to worry about these people taking over, right? And so, why would he allow them any leeway? Right? It doesn't make sense, except that this story right here, this particular story of the straw, that's one of the cultural memories that has to be incorporated. And so we get this part of the narrative being drawn together around this particular bottleneck with the straw. That's logically conceived. That's how it's going to work. And so the make them work harder part is them remembering that, right? That is the cultural memory of, yeah, remember when they said they weren't going to give us any more straw? And then that's the claiming of credit. So the taskmasters and foremen of the people went out and said to them, this is what Pharaoh says, I am no longer giving you straw. Go get your own straw wherever you can find it, but your workload in no way be reduced. And so the people scattered all over the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. And the taskmasters kept pressing them, saying, fulfill your quota each day, just as you did when the straw was provided. And then the Israelite foremen, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over the people, were beaten, and asked, why have you not fulfilled your quota of bricks yesterday or today, as you did before? Again, this is the cultural memory. It's just being brought into the story. And so the Israelite foreman went and appealed to Pharaoh. Why are you treating your servants this way? No straw has been given to your servants, yet we are told, make bricks. Look, your servants are being beaten, but the fault is with your own people. Now, it takes an awful lot of oppression for somebody to go up and say something like that to the oppressor, right? You were slackers, Pharaoh replied. Slackers. This is why you keep saying, let us go sacrifice to the Lord. Now, get to work. You will be given no straw, yet you must deliver the full quota of bricks. The Israelite foremen realized they were in trouble when they were told, you must not reduce your daily quota of bricks. And when they left Pharaoh, they confronted Moses and Aaron, who stood waiting to meet them. May the Lord look upon you and judge you, the foreman said, for you have made us a stench before Pharaoh and his officials. You have placed in their hand a sword to kill us. And so Moses turned to the Lord and asked, Lord, why have you brought trouble upon this people? Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble on this people, and you have not delivered your people in any way. This is a big clue as to what is going on here. And it's glossed over because of the next part, but again, the omnipotent power of God, and you are to convince your people, I am here to free you. But first, we're going to go through this series of plagues. And then I'm going to free you. And yeah, buddy, we're going to get into this. we're going to get into this and start stepping on some toes. So, uh, and he says, you have not delivered your people in any way. And so he's going out in the name of this entity that he has entered into covenant with, because it was a new covenant, right? We're into like the fourth, fifth covenant by now. And so we've got a new covenant with this same entity that calls for blood sacrifice and calls for all of these things, and who was going to kill him until he had blood wiped on his feet. These people that he made this plan with have not done anything as to yet. He has not hardened Pharaoh's heart, so to speak, but he's made it taskmaster, right? That's just a logical response to what was going on, right? Like, so you got these people rabble rousing, and it's a significant population. Like, we're going to get into the numbers that we're dealing with here, and let's go ahead and talk about it, because it lists it later, but it is important to keep this in mind in this juncture right here. We've looked in Google Earth at the location. There are, at the time of the Exodus, when they leave at the bottom of where we're going, and I don't think we get there today, that's why I want to bring this in. There are 600,000 males. That means that if we are talking about census-ready people, they are married. That is just the Jewish tradition, and they were very fruitful. They multiplied greatly, right? So we're talking at least, if we got 600,000 and 600,000, we're looking at 1.2 million people without children. We're talking, if they are being fruitful to the point where they went from the original count of 70, I believe it was 70, to 1.2 million adults in 430 years, if they're being that fruitful, we're talking about bringing, along with this 1.2 million, at least another 1.2 million. That's 2 children. So they're at least meeting their own replacement value. But more likely, we're adding another 1.2 million on top of that. So we're talking about 3.6 million people, right? Counting children, but 1.2 million adults, 600,000 fighting men in this situation, in this prosperous area with access to weapons and tools. It is very important to keep that in mind, right? 600,000 people is bigger than most cities in this country. 1.2 million adults. There are only 5 cities in the United States larger than that. That is a population bigger than some states. That is a population bigger than several countries. That is an enormous amount of people. 600,000 fighting men is an army of enormous stature. Even considering that you would strike a third of that, right? You are still looking at 400,000 fighting men. That is an enormous size army. These are men who are oppressed, tend to be strong. They tend to be very physical people. And so it is important to bear in mind the sheer number and volume and scope of what we are physically talking about when we start talking about who is leaving Egypt and the conditions in which they are leaving. Okay, so there's a significant number of rabble rousers in this population who are distracting from the work that is being done. And so the natural response of Pharaoh is going to be either kill these people or stop their religion. The easiest way to stop their religion would be to kill Moses and Aaron, because they are the rabble rousers, and You can talk about divine protection. I am not going to argue against that. You can talk about all of that. I am not going to say that they should have been killed, but logically speaking, they should have been killed. They were divinely protected at a minimum. And so it's just the logical consistency of making the decisions. And if you're talking about 600,000 people that you just increased the labor and efforts of, and you were oppressing, and they all live together. They're all concentrated in this one area of this prosperous part of the land. That's the part that's logically inconsistent. But Moses, however, saw something. He saw some potential. But first he has to get the equation balanced a little bit. The Lord said to Moses, "Now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. Because of my mighty hand he will let the people go. Because of my strong hand he will drive them out of his land." Interesting, right? They will, because of my strong hand, he will drive them, his people, right? Because of my mighty hand, he will let the people go. My strong hand, he will drive them out of his land. So he's going to drive these people out. He's going to be like, go. He's not going to chase them to take them back. He's going to say, get out of here. Go. And let them go. And God also told Moses, I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty. But my name is the Lord. I did not make myself known to them. I want to pop this out and see which version of Lord this is. You know how word studies have to work, right? Because it's not always the same. Okay, this is Yahweh. So now he is naming himself as Yahweh. Oh. But it's also important to bear in mind that they are expecting him to be named that, right? He is the I am. He is saying that I am the I am. That is what he told him in the wilderness. That is what he told him at the burning bush. Oh. That's why I don't like putting a name. That's why I don't really even like calling the name Yahweh, is because I don't know. God as a concept is beyond the name. Period. Oh. I gotta find where I was. Y'all give me just 1 second. The land where they have lived as foreigners. He will drive them out of his land. All right. I appeared to Isaac, Jacob. My name the Lord. I did not make myself known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land where they lived as foreigners. That's so crazy to me that you can justify, like, that would be like for us here. Consider that would be like they have somebody from Mexico just comes wandering through and stays as a farmhand or a shepherd and says to himself, you know what? God's going to give me this land. And then he comes back with an army, right? Several generations later, his family comes back because he has built a religion around this. And then just destroys everything in the land and takes it. Like, and then that's cool because God said, why was it not given to them then? If this is the land of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? Then they should possess the land. That is the fulfillment of God. That is the fulfillment of the actual God. But that's not the fulfillment of this other entity that is working in the place of God. I established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land where they lived as foreigners. Furthermore, I have heard the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant. Therefore, tell the Israelites, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians, and deliver you from their bondage. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people, and I will be your God. And then you will know that I am the Lord your God, who brought you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. And I will bring you into the land that I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will give it to you as a possession. I am the Lord. So, here, now, okay, now I'm going to take you as my people. I'm going to pull you out from under this yoke that you've been under, and now I'm going to claim you as my people. Okay? That is absolutely within the character of God. That is absolutely loyal, just, and true. That's what that is. That's absolutely what that is. And Moses relayed this message to the Israelites, but on account of their broken spirit and cruel bondage, they did not listen to him. So the Lord said to Moses, "Go and tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the Israelites go out of his land." But in the Lord's presence, Moses replied, "If the Israelites will not listen to me, then why would Pharaoh listen to me, since I am unskilled in speech?" And then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and gave them a charge concerning both the Israelites and Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring the Israelites out of the land of Egypt. Now, this is a consistency error. It's not as glaring as some of the other ones, but this is the same thing that he said to him in the wilderness. It's bringing in the justification for Aaron to be the mouthpiece, while Moses is the manipulator. And these were the heads of the fathers' houses. Here, it's going to be a list. We're going to go through it as quickly as possible. But this is a list that justifies their genealogy. I'm going to go through it just because I want it all to be included in these videos. These were the heads of their fathers' houses. The sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, were Hanok and Palu, Hezron and Carmi. These were the clans of Reuben. The sons of Simeon were Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, Shaul, then the son of a Canaanite woman. These were the clans of Simeon. These were the names of the sons of Levi according to their records: Gershon, Kohath, Merari. Levi lived 137 years. It's interesting that they put that in there. We've talked about that before. The sons of Gershon were Libni, Shimi, and their clans. The sons of Kohath and Amram, Izhar and Hebron, Uzziel. Kohath lived 133 years. We don't have that context yet. The sons of Merari were Mahali and Mushi. These were the clans of Levites according to their records. Okay, so first you get the sons of all of them, right? Now you're going to get the sons of Levi separately, because Levi is dealing with Moses, and Levi is dealing with Aaron, and Levi is dealing with the priesthood and the religion. Imagine that. And so, these were the clans of the Levites according to their records. And Amram married his father's sister, Jochebed, and she bore him Aaron and Moses. Amram lived 137 years. The sons of Izhar were Korah, Nepheg, and Zichri. The sons of Uzziel were Mishael, Elsavan, and Sithri. And Aaron married Elisheba, the daughter of Amminadab, the sister of Nahshon, and she bore him Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. The sons of Korah were Asir, Elkanah, and Abisapha, and these were the clans of the Korhites. Aaron's son Eleazar married one of the daughters of Putiel, and she bore him Phinehas. These were the head of the Levite clan families by their clans. It was this Aaron and Moses to whom the Lord said, "Bring the Israelites out of the land of Egypt by their divisions." Moses and Aaron were the ones who spoke to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, in order to bring the Israelites out of Egypt. Now on that day the Lord spoke to Moses in Egypt, and he said to him, "I am the Lord. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, everything I say to you." But in the Lord's presence, Moses replied, "Since I am unskilled in speech, why would Pharaoh listen to me?" How long is 7? We'll do 7 too. So, again, we have the reiteration of the amalgamation. This is just another proof in the many circumstantial points of interest that this is an amalgamation of a story, and this is something that is known, that is being brought in. Moses couldn't speak. That we get it 3 times as referenced, and each time he says the same thing to the Lord in a different location, in a different context. That is not something you're going to do to God. It's just not. Maybe once, not 3 times. And so, Exodus 7. The Lord answered Moses, "See, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. You are to speak all that I command you, and your brother Aaron is to tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his land. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I will multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, Pharaoh will not listen to you." And again, we have a character problem. This is a problem if you believe that God is just and true. If you believe that he follows his word and he fulfills his promises, this is a problem. This is a consistency error right here. Because we've talked about it before, and we will definitely talk about it again. There is no need to harden the heart of Pharaoh. If God goes in there and he does the miracle, he knows what miracle needs to be done to let it go. The only reason for this is because of the bottlenecks that are placed in place. Like this, I believe that this story was put together after Moses, right? After they're already in Israel, after the prophets are already starting to talk. They put all this together and they bring it together and they say that it's Moses because people know Moses as the common point of interest. We see so far several ways to verify that that could have happened. I can't say definitively things did happen. I just say what I see happen to me, right? What I see out of this. It seems to me that that is the logical way. I never want to take away from God and the overarching story of the book because the book is summed up, right? It's real easy. Love the Lord thy God with all of thy heart, soul, and mind. Love thy neighbor as thyself. That is the sum of the law. If you do them two things, you keep all the laws. The food stuff is just to keep you safe. Okay, so let's get back into 7. And so Moses is like, "You are the God Almighty himself. You are the person who is telling me to go forward, and I can't speak." Boy, that doesn't sound familiar. And so I can totally commiserate with this, right? Like, my voice is not where it should be, and it has a lot to do with my faith. I freely acknowledge that. There is a level of commitment that I have not yet committed to, that I am working up towards. And it is a very significant level. And when that happens, then there will be that. And I understand that. And I am not putting it off because of that, but because there's a lot of factors that have to be taken into charting that course. It is not just me involved. My soul is involved with other people. And so, anyways, let's get back on track. The hardening of Pharaoh's heart does not need to happen. God can say, "Okay, you set my people free," and poof, he can. So this is one of the proofs for me that we're dealing with the wrong entity. Because the goal here is not to get the people free, but to kill the people of Egypt. And the getting the people free it's kind of a heavy side effect. "And then I will lay my hand on Egypt, and by mighty acts of judgment I will bring the divisions of my people, the Israelites, out of the land of Egypt. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt, and bring the Israelites out from among them." Again, we don't need that. Like, he can come in there and say, "Okay, let's start with boils," right? We're going to start. My God says that if you do not set his people free, you will have boils. And then you're like, "No, you don't get your people." And he goes, poof, boils. Now, I don't know about you, but if that happens, and it's across the entire freaking everything, that one miracle by itself is going to be like, "I bet, y'all bounce." Like, that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to be like, "Okay, I'm with you, God. What's his name? I want to talk to him." Right? Like, that's what I'm going to say. But not this hardening of hearts. I think that there's other reasons for that, and we will get into those. But there's no need to harden the heart unless the outcome that you want is the last one. So Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord commanded him. Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron was 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. So now we have the confirmation of age on Aaron, and he's 3 years older. But there's already been a command to kill the men in the land, the boys in the land. There's already been the command to kill them, and then they don't do it, so they say throw them in the river, and they don't say how long that's been going on when Moses is done, right? The fact that the two of them are brothers and are raised together is just not. No. And so, yeah. Not without some other reason. Not in the Pharaoh's house and not in the Pharaoh's house. Or, like, it just doesn't, it's not logically consistent. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when Pharaoh tells you perform a miracle, you are to say to Aaron, take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh, and it will become a serpent. Again, we get into the serpent iconography. We talked about that in the last one. I'm not going to dive into that this time. And so Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did just as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron threw his staff down before Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a serpent. But Pharaoh called the wise men and sorcerers and magicians of Egypt, and they also did the same things by their magic arts. Each one threw down his staff, and it became a serpent. But Aaron's staff swallowed up the other staffs. And still Pharaoh's heart was hardened, but he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had said. And I don't blame him. Like, this isn't the Lord hardening the heart, it's an insufficient miracle. Why would you lead with that? That's weak. If everybody can do it, then why do it? Why even bring that up, right? Now, look at this. I can throw it on the ground and make a snake. This staff that I took with me from the land of Midian, where I lived with the priest of Midian. I can throw this staff on the ground and it turns to a snake like they do in Midian. And the magicians in Egypt are like, yeah, we can do that too. Check it out. Yeah, well, my snake will eat your snake. That's the energy here, right? Like, but Aaron's staff swallowed up the other staffs. Okay, bro. All right, we got one upper here. And so Pharaoh's heart was hardened and he would not listen to them. Well, I don't blame him, right? That's a weak miracle for the almighty, powerful God of all. So we get to the first plague, right? We don't have the hand going in and turning into leprosy, and I bet them things were replicated too. I bet that's what happened there. And then the Lord said, like, it was enough to fool the Israelites because they didn't deal with Magi. But it wasn't enough to fool Pharaoh because he does. And Magi is important too because Daniel's Magi, Isaiah, like there's a lot of Magi coming up. And then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is unyielding. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning as you see him walking out to the water. Wait on the bank of the Nile to meet him, and take in your hand the staff that was changed into a snake, the same staff you took from Midian, from the priest. And then say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to tell you, let my people go so that they may worship me in the wilderness. Again, this is just the journey. But you have not listened until now. And this is what the Lord says. By this you will know that I am the Lord. Behold, with the staff in my hand I will strike the water of the Nile, and it will turn to blood. And the fish in the Nile will die, the river will stink, and the Egyptians will be unable to drink its water. And the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over the waters and canals and ponds and reservoirs, so that they may become blood. There will be blood throughout the land of Egypt, even in the vessels of wood and stone. Let's keep that in mind when we get to later prophecies that are talking about rivers and seas turning to blood. We're going to talk about my theory on that. Let's go ahead and talk about it, right? I believe that magnetics are a thing. I believe that the magnetics of life is what holds everything together. I believe that we have several different points in our body that hold us together, and one outside that holds all of that together, and it fits into various other ones as we go along. And the magnetic interactions that we have shape our lives. I believe that magnetics can affect other things, such as the flow of water, the ebb and move of, say, the moon, and how it pulls the tides. I believe that has a lot to do with magnetics, and that gravity is misunderstood magnetics. I don't know how it's misunderstood. I don't have the perfect theory of how it works. But magnetics lies at the core of it, because everything is a harmonic, and harmonics is an expression of the torus, which is the magnetics expressed. Those are the same thing, harmonics and magnetics. My theory here, with this particular miracle and this particular situation that's going on, is typified later on because that staff has properties, right? We don't know the specifics of the staff. We don't know the specifics of how they change it. It could be as simple as it is a stick that he picked up from the ground and he threw it down and it changed into a snake. And there is no specific reason why that was chosen. It can be that simple. More than likely, this particular material was significant because it is referred to as the staff of God. It is going to be something that is recognizable. It is going to be something that is going to be significant. And so I think that it was probably some specialized wood or a petrified material or some type of a crystal attachment or something along those lines. I also know that magnetics can be manipulated, that you can take magnets and do things with them, and that you can channel your own personal energy through crystals and change them. I haven't been able to affect anything outside of myself in a grand degree. I don't claim to be some kind of fireball casting wizard, but I can move the magnetics of my body. I can intentionally trigger things that other people can't. That's not because I am special. It is because I have tried and I have dedicated the time to do so. All of that to say that this staff can hold properties, right? Magnetic properties that can be activated if you have been trained in the use of how to do so. I thoroughly believe that. Not that the staff has powers, but that it can be an amplification source and a filter to achieve certain things. Now, as far as the waters, water operates at a frequency of about 8 pounds per gallon, right? Let's call it that. And blood operates at a slightly different frequency than that. It contains different components. Yes, I understand that. But the base elements of life is contained in all things. Almost everything contains at least some of the atoms necessary for everything. Not necessarily in the same concentrations, but in ways that can be manipulated from one substance to another through the proper methods. They have indeed turned lead into gold. Is it an enormous sink of energy and resources to do so? It is in no way something easily achievable, but it is something that they have done. I believe that it is possible that with the proper training and this amplification device that has been fine-tuned from possibly a time before, it is possible to change water and its harmonic as needed into a blood substance, or to make it not appear and make a drought, or to call it in and start a rainfall, as we see evidence of in many, many ways. It is also possible with something like this and the proper training to call down fire from heaven and start fire on water, right? It's funny how that works. And so we will definitely dive deeper into that, but I wanted to lay down the foundations of where I see this as. Most of these miracles and the ways that they occur can be explained through this one act right here and the ripple effects of life in Egypt. And the entity that helped him out benefits greatly from the things that ensue. And so there will be blood throughout the land of Egypt, even in the vessels of wood and stone. Not just the flowing waters, not just the open waters, but the contained waters within your house will all be turned to blood. Blood is significant. Blood is one of the requirements of the other side for many things that they do. There are many things that require blood sacrifice. And so, Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded, in the presence of Pharaoh and his officials. Aaron raised the staff and struck the water of the Nile, and all the water turned to blood. And the fish of the Nile died, and the river smelled so bad the Egyptians could not drink its water, and there was blood throughout the land of Egypt. But the magicians of Egypt did the same thing by their magic arts. So Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not listen to Moses and Aaron, just as the Lord had said. Instead, Pharaoh turned around, went into his palace, and did not take any of this to heart. So all the Egyptians dug around the Nile for water to drink, because they could not drink the water from the river. And 7 full days passed after the Lord had struck the Nile. Okay, so we're going to let it go right there. We will pick up here on the next one, because this is getting long and my voice is getting tired. But hopefully I'm bringing a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to what I believe and why I think that there are several inconsistencies here, right? The fact that God, the Almighty God of creation, He who holds all things in the palm of His hand, and with the ability to do all things, has to first perform these insignificant miracles. Because if the Magi can do it, then that means that it's not from God. And so if you're God and you're trying to prove you're God, you're doing something that cannot be replicated. When Isaiah made his challenge and he poured water upon the altar, he was saying, my God can do something that yours can't. And he was right. Moses is saying, my God can do something that yours can't. And he's not. So, first off, how does he not know these things if he's raised in Pharaoh's household? How does he not know if he was raised in Pharaoh's household as one of the rulers, like, right? He had the access according to the general story. How does he not know that the Magi can do these things too? Well, there's another inconsistency here. How is he not knowing what level he's going to bring to again? And so we see a progression here and things that happen here, and we will get into that more as we go along. But I wanted to lay out the basics. I wanted to talk about what I believe in this, because I do believe that almost all of the miracles that we can see in this book can be explained through magnetics, through the manipulation of magnetics by the people who live the life of God, up to and including Jesus Christ himself. Whenever they touch the hem of his robe and he feels the power leave him, that's the magnetics of being in the oneness. And if you've been in the oneness and you know what I'm talking about, then you know what he felt when it went. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at with it, though. I believe, like, I know I hold unconventional beliefs. I know that it steps on toes. I know it's hurting people's feelings. Like, I have not yet run across the hate, but I know that I will, because what I'm saying so greatly contradicts what we have been taught our entire lives. But I believe that that's the grand deception. I believe that the grand deception started with Abraham. And that's a really long way to go back. There's a lot of stuff to untack, to pull out the pins and let the weave fall out because it's been woven wrong. I don't want to say that, but I have to, right? I've been told to take this apart, to show piece by piece by reading it out loud, piece by piece, and talking about why it's wrong. That's what I've been told to do, and so that's what I'm doing. We're probably going to jump ahead. I've got something that's popped up that I'm doing research on, so we will probably be in Matthew before the next Exodus video, but we will be coming back to Exodus very shortly. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a very complicated topic. It's very tough to unravel something that has been in place for 6,000 years. It is very tough to unravel where the amalgamation is and what the falsehoods are. There are many of them scattered in here. There really are. And it's evidenced through the inconsistencies. Because if this was the infallible Word of God, there can be no inconsistencies. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. You're perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pittstake. Peace.